go ahead and actually get started. I will start out with the web portal. I know that many of you do have different versions of the capture system, so if I'm talking about something that you might not be familiar with, if you want to make a mental note of it, then you can do that and ask us about it later. It might be a feature that you might be interested in adding into your system if you don't already have that. And talk that over with you following this webinar. As you see here, a screen that many of you are very familiar with. This is the home page of the Capture web portal. This is where, of course, you will be able to start your journey, if you will, through the Capture system as an administrator. I'm going to briefly touch on everything in the web portal here, since this is our first tips and tricks, and I will let you know that there may be some things in here that do not apply to you. There may also be some things that I might talk about that you're already very familiar with, but if you just bear with me, then we can get through it, and you might learn something you weren't sure about before, or it might just help you to brush up on something you already knew. I'm going to start here in the upper left-hand corner with the Quick Tasks menu. This is something that is part of 5.1 that we allow you all to quickly, of course, schedule visitors or add a new user. So if you needed to schedule a visitor for a particular resident, we'll say, then I can show you how to do that. Of course, you're going to click Resident there. Going to bounce off your server and pull back your list of residents, and then we'll just say we're going to schedule for Mr. Acevedo there. It'll pull up this screen here, and many of you have seen this before, I know, but I just want to walk you through it here again just so you can see it. If you needed to add a visitor, you can put first name, last name, and currently in this build of the software, last name is a requirement. So I know that there are some folks who have had questions about companies where maybe you've got a contractor coming in. The company name currently in the current build will need to go in the last name field if you don't know that contractor's last name. In a future release, which will be out in a couple of weeks, we will actually be able to allow you to put the company name here without a last name so that you could search by just the company name. So I've got the first name and last name of this visitor here. If you need to put the company, if they're with a company, you can put that. If you needed to choose a visitor type from the drop-down list, this is, of course, customizable to your particular system, so many of you will probably have a one-time visitor, so I'll select a one-time visitor here. If you needed to type any comments in here for the security officer at the gate or the person who might be checking them in, maybe at a clubhouse or something, then you could type those comments in here. We've got the default destination for this particular resident is going to be here in this line. If you needed to send them to another location, if you've got some other destinations in here, such as maybe a pool or a tennis court, then you could select that from this drop-down. But I'm just going to leave it as the default destination right now. You've got the ability for the scheduled date and time to either click on the calendar here or to change the date in the text box. I'm going to click on the calendar to show you how that would work. Say that we've got Mathis Wilkins coming in tomorrow. We're going to pick him for 5/4, and then say he's leaving out tomorrow as well. We can say his expiration date is going to be on the 4th. We'll say he's coming in at 9 a.m. This deny button down here, for those of you who may not know, will actually allow you to deny a particular visitor for any particular resident. This, of course, to remind you, doesn't deny that visitor for all residents within the community. There is a watch list for that, which I will talk about, but this will allow you to deny it for a particular resident, So you can have that access there. And what it'll do, if you're not familiar, is in the visitor processing client, there will actually be a red line through the name in the visitor processing client that the officer at the gate or the person sitting at the lobby desk would be using to check that person in. It'll deny it and say they're not allowed to gain access to the facility. You can hit Add to List. From here, if maybe you made a mistake, you could click on this particular name and hit Remove from List if you needed to. You could also go through and add additional visitors here if you needed to. If there were any folks in the visitor list, we've already got a Brent Faring in here, then you could quickly add him as well. So say he's coming back again on the 12th at 10:30. Add to list. Once you've got all the persons in your visitor list that you need, you can hit save. It only has to be one person, of course, but the more you put in, the more that it'll save. Hit save, and then now you'll actually be able to see that these folks are in the pending visitor list now. So they're there. The next part of the quick task there is the add a user type. If you needed to add a new resident, then you would just click resident from that drop down list, and it's actually going to go ahead and pop up the window where you can enter all the information that you see here. And I won't go through this right now because it is a little bit extensive, and I know that you've all seen this before, but just to remind you that this is how you can get there. And of course you can upload a photo of that resident to point out to you in case you would like folks there to become more familiar with a particular resident's face. Cool. Underneath the quick tasks, we have the search menu here. So you have the ability to search by any of these particular radio buttons that might be customizable based on what your system entails. So there might be some items here that you're not familiar with. That's just because your system may not actually have some of these items. But if you've got something you want to ask about, then you can, of course. So if we wanted to search for a particular resident, do that here. You can type just a few letters in their name and hit search, and it'll pull back everybody that would be under that particular name. So we got those two. Jump back to the home screen. Underneath that, we have our commonly run reports. If there is a particular report that you run on a regular basis, you have the ability to pin that to your dashboard on your home page here so that you can watch that and run it more quickly than having to go through the reports tab, click on general reports, and finding that report. So if, for example, you wanted to see your gate statistics report, you could click on that one. It's going to take a second to pull back that information, and then you can sort back by any particular date range up here. You will also be able to export any of the reports to Excel, Word, PDF, or a CSV file. Out of that. Beneath the reports on the dashboard is the messages section where you'll be able to read any of the particular messages that a resident or employee might leave for you and for the officers to see, such as a vacation message, please don't allow any visitors for the next 2 weeks. And those messages I'll show you in a little bit. They have the ability actually to set a start date and an expiration date for those messages so that they only show up for the officer at the visitor processing client during those particular times. In the middle of the screen here, we've got the pending visitor list. You can edit any of these visitors with the pencil next to their name if you needed to do that, if you needed to change the time for any particular reason. And then below that, we've got some incident reports here. So any of your pending incident reports. If they are closed, they will actually not show up here. Moving along across the top, under the Profiles tab is where you have the ability to edit any of the profile information for any of the users that you see here. So if we wanted to look at one of the residents, we'll look at Miss Acosta here. You can click on her name and pull up her information. These are all the items that you as an administrator have access to editing within the system. A number of these things, the residents, if you all do give access to your residents to log in, they do have the ability to edit some of the things in here, but not everything. In particular, they wouldn't have the ability to edit their property information. That's reserved just for you so that you can handle that accordingly, and they can't accidentally delete something there. But they would be able to, for example, change their email address or change their photo in there as well. And of course, you want to hit update if you edit any of this information. One thing I want to point out is the community lookup here. If you all would like to use a system for a phone book of sorts, then you have that ability here, and your residents have the ability to allow access for other residents to see a particular amount of information. They could have none of their information shared or any of the other selections that you see here. And this will show up in the Community Lookup tab underneath the community information for the residents when they log in. The next tab there, just to go through, I'll go through this quickly for you since I know you probably are very familiar with all this, is the pending visitor list for any of the visitors for this particular host. The next item is the phone numbers. Family members would also be next. Any automobiles that might be associated with a particular resident. The residents do have the ability to log in to see what you as an administrator have on file for them, but they do not have access to edit that information. So if someone does get a new vehicle, then they can go into the capture system, see that you have their old vehicle on file, and give you a call and let you know that, hey, I need to get this information updated, please. And they can do that. So if you do need to go in, you can hit this edit pencil here, edit any of the information, change the photo if you need to. You can also hit the X button here to delete, or the image button there will allow you to just quickly edit that image if that's all you needed to do. Next tab is Pets. Some of you utilize this more than others, which is perfectly fine. There may be a lost pet in the community that you would like to find the owner of. Maybe someone finds a dog, brings it to the gatehouse there, and wants one of your officers or you as an administrator to search for the particular pet. What they have the ability to do is any pets that are in the system, you can actually even put a photo in there. Any pets that are in the system, they'll be able to search for those pets based on any of the columns here. So they could sort through the dogs and find the black dogs or anything of that nature that you see. So that can help find Fido's home. The messages here is what I mentioned with the vacation notices. If you need to put in a vacation notice for a particular resident or any other sort of host, they also have the ability to do this themselves. You'll see here an effective date and an expiration date. If you wanted to add a new one, you have the plus sign there in the green circle. You can give a short description, a longer description, which is more detailed answering, and then what type of a message it may be. And again, this list here is customizable by you all as administrators to whatever types you would like in here. You can set your effective date, say it's starting today and it's going to be through the 17th, and you could do that there. And now that message will pop up in the visitor processing client only during this time period here. So after the 17th, it won't show up anymore because you're expecting that person to be back in their home if it's a vacation. Smart keys are for those who might be integrated to the access control system. I won't get too in-depth with these. If you have any particular questions with access control in the capture system, give us a call at the tech support number or shoot in an email and we can answer those for you. If you don't have access control and you would like some more information on that, then you can also give us a call or shoot us an email and we'll take care of that for you. Associated properties is the final tab for the resident profile information. If, say, you've got a particular resident who maybe owns one property within the community and lives permanently in that property, and then also maybe owns another property in the community but rents that out to other folks, then you have the ability to attach associated properties with a particular host. And you would do that here by just hitting the plus sign. If you need to delete that for any reason, you've got the delete button. The items for the rest of the user types are pretty much the same, so I will move on past those for the moment. The community information section is where you as an administrator have the ability to post any notices under this information tab. Maybe you've got some road construction going on next week and you needed to add that information here. You can hit that plus sign, add that information, and of course again you'll set an effective from an effective to date, and only during that time period will it show up for the resident view. The next tab there is the forms. If maybe there are any items in here that you need to upload for your residents to be able to go onto their web portal and download, then they have the ability to log in and click on the paperclip there and download that just like they would have downloaded an attachment to an email. So that access is there. The newsletters are the same way. Maybe you've written up all of your newsletters for the whole year and you only want April to show during April and May to show during May, then you can actually set the effective from and effective to date for each of those newsletters for each month, but you could go ahead and upload all of them at the first of the year if you've got those, or as you get them. And again, the same thing, the residents log into this community information section and hit the paperclip and they can download that form, PDF form. The incidents tab. This is where any of your pending incidents may be, if maybe you all do collect incidents. If you needed to add a new incident, we've got the plus sign here just like with any other item throughout the system. You can set an incident number, well the incident number, excuse me, will set itself. You can set an incident status based on any of the items that you might have here. Incident type, again this is a customizable list for you, so if you wanted to say a theft, hopefully that doesn't happen very often or at all, but if you need to do that, you have that there. If you wanted to add a person involved, a host maybe, then you click this item and any of your hosts in the system will come up here. You can start typing to search for any of those if you needed to do that, and then you can pick a particular host, hit the plus sign, you're going to add them to the persons involved list, and then maybe if there was a visitor involved, then you could type that name in there as well. Once you get them on here, if you need to delete them for any reason, you've got the X's there again. The incident date and time, this may be something that maybe happened over the weekend and then you're coming in on Monday morning and you're trying to put it in the system. So this incident date and time allows you to put in exactly when that incident occurred, where it occurred at by the location, and then who reported it, if that's you or maybe if one of your officers does that. And then when it's actually reported on. So maybe it happened on Saturday, but we're just getting to report it today because we just heard word of it. You have the details section there. The incidents, to remind you, the officers have the ability to log in as well as the administrators. All persons involved can edit the details box or add new information to that. If I'm logged in as an officer, then I am only allowed to edit the officer box. I can't edit the administrator box. Right now I'm logged in as an administrator, so I can add text in here. But I can't, of course, add anything to the guard box. So that allows you to keep those remarks separate for whatever purposes you may need them. If there might be any automobiles involved, then you can select the person associated with that automobile, the make, model, year, and tag number, and hit add, and it'll add them to the list. Once you save this report, you would have the ability to, and it's fussing at me because I don't have anything in here. We'll just type one quick word there. You have the ability to save this. So we've got this one here. After that, we can go back and log in, and any photos that we may need to add to this particular incident, we can do that as well, and then save those images and then save the whole report. We can edit it and change the status of this one. Maybe it's waiting a response from someone else, and you could do that from there. And then of course you want to hit save. If you wanted to see these incidents in a shorter detail, you could hit this detail button. It's going to pull this up. You could save this to a PDF and then print it, or you can hit the right button on your mouse and hit print from there, and you can print it straight from the web here if you just needed that quickly for whatever reason. We'll close that one out. And you have the ability, of course, to search by any of the items in the selections here. We've got the text box to start searching, so maybe we wanted to find all of the new reports. Hit new, and it's going to pull up just those new ones. Also, if we're looking at the screen with all of them, we can sort any particular columns by their particular heading types. Do that there. And if you needed to delete any of these incidents for any reason, you have the ability to do that there. Moving on, underneath the Administration tab, we have System Configuration. The first tab that will pop up is the List Management, and I'll go ahead and talk about that while we're here. This, to remind you, is where you have the ability to edit any of the drop-downs throughout all facets of the program. So if you are looking at, we'll say visitor type, for example. These are the visitor types that are in this particular system. If you needed to add a new visitor type for whatever reason, maybe you wanted a 2-month visitor, we'll say, you're going to hit Add New Item to List, give it a name, give it a code. It can be 1 letter, 2 letters if you wanted that. Anytime you see a question mark here, that is a mouse over note that will actually tell you what this particular section is. Then after that, you have the ability to set any of the rules that you see here. If, for example, you are scanning driver's licenses, then you might want to force a driver's license scan from that particular visitor type. And if a particular officer were not to scan that license for that forced driver's license scan rule, then it would force the officer to type a note in the notes section as to why they didn't scan that. Say a walk-up visitor, and they processed them through and they didn't have their license on them, then that would take care of that issue. To walk through each of these, we have the ability in the system, for those of you who don't know, to set printed pass revenue for a particular visitor type. So maybe you would like to charge your contractors a small fee for maybe normal wear and tear that their vehicles might incur while on site that some of the residential vehicles might not necessarily cause to the roadways, and you could charge them for that. It also works as a tool to kind of counteract any potential solicitations that you don't want in the community. So it wouldn't be just folks driving in trying to find work. If they belong there, then they might be willing to pay, of course. So that's what the printed pass revenue is. Purge expired is one that we like to suggest that a lot of folks consider for particular visitor types. What Purge Expired does is it actually allows you to delete a visitor of a particular type once that visitor's expiration date is up. So what that means is it doesn't delete them from the database. So if, for example, I were to come in today and I was a one-time visitor and Purge Expired is on for one-time visitors, then tomorrow I would actually be purged from the visitor list of the host I was coming to see. I would still be in the transaction log, so you'd still be able to pull back up all of my details, but it just helps to clean up your visitor lists. So if this is something that you may have an issue with in your community, maybe your visitor lists are getting a little too large and it's taken more time to pull up some information, then this Purge Expired will actually help to clean up your database for you. And again, it just purges that particular visitor from the system just from the visitor lists once their expiration date is up. Unlimited duration is actually the opposite of that, in that you can set this particular rule to any visitor types that maybe you want to allow them to bypass the max visitor duration. And we'll talk about the max visitor duration in just a moment. But if maybe your max visitor duration is 1 year and you've got a niece or nephew who's coming to live for maybe 2 years for whatever reason, then you could have, for example, a permanent visitor type here, set unlimited duration to this particular type, and then it will actually bypass that max visitor duration rule. Forced driver's license scan, again, will force driver's license scan from the officer if you all do scan licenses. Hidden from host, what that means is you might have a visitor type within the system that you don't want your residents to know exist, but you would like your officers and your administrators to know exist. For example, maybe you want a particular VIP visitor type. Then you could put that in there for the administrators and the officers to schedule those types of visitors, but the residents wouldn't be able to schedule those types of visitors. So this could even be used for maybe a long-term visitor, depending on your policy and practices at your community. Then you could make it so that the residents have the ability to schedule maybe a one-time and a one-week visitor, but any visitor longer than that, they have to confirm through you that they're authorized to schedule that person and then have you schedule that. So that's what hidden from host is. And then default visitor type is just to set which visitor type you would like to have as a default. So I'm going to go ahead and put Purge Expired on here just to show you how that does it. It's going to pop up a window again, just reminding you of what that particular rule is, and it says, are you sure you want to do this? Hit OK. And then you hit Save to List. And now you'll see we've got this 2-month visitor with a TM, and PE right there in brackets is the Purge Expired rule. If you wanted to delete any of these items for any particular reason, just click on their name. It's going to pull back up this if you need to edit it. And if you need to delete it, you can just hit delete right there. See, it's actually going to get pulled from that list there. I tried to rush it and it logged me out. Bear with me 1 second. Got fussy there because I tried to make it delete twice. So that's a good tip for you. Don't try that. Back to where we were. And then any of the other items here, you have the ability to edit any of these drop downs in much the same way that you did. If you need to add a new one, you're just going to hit add new item to list, type it there, and then hit save to list. I'm going to jump back to the general configuration tab here. This is where you have the ability to edit any of the items you see here, such as the community name. If you want the community name on your passes to say something else, or in the web portal to say something else, and you have the ability to edit that here. Any of your gates, maybe you've got a big construction project going on and you all just got a new gate and you need to add a gate, then you could actually type that information in here, link it to any of your HOAs if maybe you're a community that has more than one HOA, and then hit add. And you have the ability to select from those particular gates there. The max visitor duration will be one that I would like to talk about, is where again you have the ability to set within the system your rules for scheduling particular visitors. So if you would like to, you have the ability to set a max visitor duration and a max pass duration. Typically the max pass duration is going to be less than or at least equal to the max visitor duration. So what that does, of course, you can't have a pass longer than your max visitor duration. But if you wanted to say allow folks to schedule visitors for 6 years, but you wanted to actually make sure that you print a pass for that visitor every 1 year, then you could actually put that rule in the system here, so that after a year you'd have to scan their license or collect their information again if you're not scanning licenses to update your records in the systems that you have current records for that visitor on site. You have the ability to set that here, changing in the text box, and then selecting your drop downs. The default license state and tag is right there, and then hide admitted visitors. What this does is just exactly what it says. If you've got a visitor list on the visitor processing client that the officers are using at the gate that gets a little cluttered, as soon as they admit that person through, if you have yes turned on here, then it will actually clear that visitor from the visitor list once you admit that person into the community. So right now it's just turned off to no, but if you would like to turn that on, that's what that is. Visitor pass notice here, some of you are probably familiar with this, allows you to edit what you have written on the bottom of your pass. So this one says, please mind the speed limit, enjoy your stay. If you get closer to summer holiday, you might want to say happy 4th of July or something like that. Then you could type that information here. And any changes you make, of course, hit save. Let's jump back to the server options tab. It's fussing at me because I didn't hit save. The server options are what you all have access to. I'm not going to go through all of these because there are quite a few of them. If there's something in the system that you would like to see changed or running differently that you don't see here, then you can give us a call, and there are about 70 server options on the back side that we maintain access to. License management is just where we maintain your visitor processing client licenses. The dynamic terms is something that might be of interest to some of you. If there's something in the program that we call a particular word that you would like to rename it something else to a more user-friendly term for you all, then you have the ability to do that here under dynamic terms. For example, if we call it association, you want to call it HOA, you can type it in there, and then the plural forms of those words on the right-hand side here. You then, of course, will need to hit save, or if you wanted to hit reset default values, you could do that as well. The custom fields is where you all have the ability to collect more information from a particular visitor type. So say, for example, you wanted to collect insurance information from your contractors that are coming on site, then you have the ability to set custom fields here. What you would do is, we'll show you this one for example, if you wanted to collect the insurance company, you would give this particular custom field a name, apply it to a visitor type, and then select from your visitor types which one you want to apply that to, and then you'll pick what field type you would like it to be. You have the ability to select a text box, a drop down, or a label. Text box will of course allow you to type that information in, and drop down will allow you to set a yes or no if it's a question of that nature. This one's a text box because we want to just let the officers type in that particular information for that contractor, and then of course you're going to hit save. If you wanted to do a drop down, then I believe this one is one. This one is a drop down. You would just type your two selections in here. Say if they were yes or no, you would type yes, hit add, type no, hit add, and then you'll have a drop down there. Oops, it's missing no, so I'll go ahead and put it in there so you can see how that works. And now we've got yes or no there. If it's something maybe you needed a color of a particular vehicle, then you could list all of your colors in the drop down, and that way the officer wouldn't have to select that particular information. Again, hit save if you change anything, and that's how the custom fields work. So if you got some ideas and maybe you need some help with that, then give us a call and we can help walk you through that for your particular issues if you have some trouble. The watch list here is where, if you remember, I mentioned that denying visitors can only be done for a particular host. If you want to deny visitors for the entire community for whatever reason, maybe you've got a disgruntled employee or a particular, say, landscaping company that you all have decided you don't want to allow in the community anymore, then you can actually put them on the watch list, and then you would type in any notes associated with that particular person as to how you'd like your officers to approach this particular person and what you'd like them to do with that person. For example, if we've got this one that says known felon, you can say call police, if I could type correctly. Date of birth you can put in here. You can also put any aliases in the name there. So if you feel like they might go by something else, then anytime that this name, Bernard Madoff or Bernie Madoff, is searched in the visitor processing client, it will do an automatic bounce off of the watch list, of the internal watch list here, and allow you to make sure this person is or is not allowed. This watch list can actually also be used for a VIP list of sorts, because it allows the officers either to choose to cancel an admission or to continue an admission. So say maybe you've got the mayor coming in this weekend, and you want that particular officer to treat that person with a little more respect than normal. Of course, you want them to treat everyone with a lot of respect, but maybe you wanted them to handle that particular person a particular way, then you could set that in there and list a note for them. The PPR tab, just to touch on that for you, is where you would be able to maintain the fees for particular user types to set those to the persons, which we mentioned earlier with those contractors. Destination management under the administration tab is where you can manage all of your streets and your properties and your destinations. I will remind you, and we can actually look at it here. We'll look at 3rd Street here, hit edit. You do have the ability on your vehicle passes to type in directions here from a particular gate. So say we wanted to come from the south gate. You have the ability to type in 3 lines of text and a maximum of 72 characters per line. So don't get too wordy, just to let you know. You would need to put in your directions from each of your gates if you do have multiple gates, because obviously they're coming from different directions. And I will let you know also that directions are to a particular street as compared to a particular property. So keep that in mind if maybe you've got some streets that wrap around in a funny direction, that the directions are to the street and not to the property. We figure that instead of having to go through and typing in directions for hundreds of properties, just a handful of streets is easier for you all, and we hope that folks can find a street number once they find that particular street. So again, these directions will print on the vehicle pass depending on what gate that person is coming from. And of course you want to hit save and save everything. Successful upload right now. From each street, then, you have the ability to edit any of your properties on those particular streets. You can sort by any of the columns you see here. You can search by the search box. And any additional destinations, which I mentioned, such as a pool or a tennis court, will be here, and you can add those in. The reports section, general reports, is what you all probably use fairly frequently, so you're probably familiar with some of these. But just to remind you, there are a number of standard reports in the system that you all have the ability to hit this button here and run these reports. If any of these reports have too much information or not enough information, then you have the ability to write a custom report that you can then delete, edit, or run. If you want to write a custom report, hit that plus sign up there, and it's going to take you through the custom report wizard that you can use. So I'll just show you quickly. For example, say we wanted just a list of resident phone numbers. There already actually is one in here, but I'm just going to show you how it would work. We're going to be pulling from the resident table, so of course we're going to select residents there and hit next. And then on the left hand side you're going to pick the fields that you want to pull. So we're going to pull last name, first name, and phone number for this particular report. You can pull as many of these as you want, but keep in mind that the more information you pull, the longer it takes for the system to pull that information back. So just keep that in mind, but it won't be too much longer. You might notice that it might take a few more seconds for one other report, for one other field. Next, once you're there, and since we're pulling from the residents, it's letting us bypass this step here, which is grayed out. If we were pulling, for example, maybe license plate information, then this would not be grayed out, and we would select the particular user types that we want to search those licenses by, so we could pull that information up. But since we're searching just for residents, we bypass this. I'm going to hit next. Then you have this selection here, Allow Guard View. If you want your officers to be able to view this report, you would click this button here. Right now it's checked, so they will be able to view that, and any of your org vendors will be able to view that as well. If you wanted to show that one on the dashboard, which is we talked about earlier, that's where you'd hit this button here, hit next. From there you can hit a test sample, but I'm just going to go ahead and hit save. And now you'll see that resident phone is down there. If we wanted to run that report, we could hit that. And of course it's going to take a little bit because it's going to pull back up all those residents and all their phone numbers. But then you have that, and I guess those folks there at the end don't have any phone numbers, but I should if they were in there. And also just to show you now, that particular report is here on our dashboard once we're back on the home menu, so you can log in and pull that one up quickly. The visitor transaction log is where you would be able to pull up any information on any of the folks that you have processed through. And you'll see a number of these folks have been processed through repeated times here pretty recently. Reason being is this site is just one of our demo sites, so that's why you see these folks in here, so don't get confused by that. But if you wanted to look at a particular transaction, you could click on that magnifying glass there. And then of course you've got all the information here, all the visitor information, the host information that they were coming to see, and the scheduling information as well. When the person was actually admitted through is this past print date, which was yesterday at 9:13 a.m. was this particular person. And then if you do scan driver's licenses, this information does show up in the visitor transaction log as well, along with that photo there that was taken on the front of the license. If you snapped a photo of a visitor with a webcam, it would also show up in the visitor transaction log here if you weren't scanning driver's licenses. So that's where that is, and you do have the ability to print any of these. I'm just going to close out of that. You can, of course, filter by particular date ranges and then search by a particular visitor name within that, or by a particular host name. So if maybe you wanted to see all of the hosts for Alan Abbott there, then you could do that. The comprehensive user profile is the report which holds all of the information for all of your users in the system. So you could run that if you needed to, but of course a custom report with some more refined information might be a better idea for you if you're looking for just some smaller particular information. Property history report allows you to see what properties might have had some changes to them. Maybe you've got some properties that are changing hands as a new owner comes in. Then all of that information would show here. I don't know if this particular one is going to pop up with anything, but we will check. It might just have the one that was in there. Then you would see some change of hands there, and actually there were some changes in there. So that's good. That property report is. And finally, the search tab here is similar to those search buttons on the home page. The search buttons on the home page just get you to your particular tab across the top here quicker and to the particular information you're looking for. The very last thing in the web portal I would like to show you is the help menu here. All users in the system have their own particular help videos that they can watch. Administrators have access to all of these help videos here. So if maybe you wanted to brush up on any of these items, and you could click this particular, say you wanted to brush up on custom fields, you could click custom fields and then watch that video in the side frame there. Go back if you needed to watch any other videos. Residents, if you give them access to the web portal, have the ability to log in and see their own help videos. Officers have access to help videos for the visitor processing client and their web portal, and org vendors and employees have their own help videos as well. So those are all there for you. I want to quickly just walk through the visitor processing client for those of you who may not be as familiar with that. This, of course, is the tool that you've seen many, many times that your officers or maybe some of your other folks there might be using to print your passes for your visitors or to check in the visitors if you're not printing anything. This is where you can search for a particular host. So say we wanted to search for Katrina Acosta. We had her a little bit earlier. You can type 3 letters anywhere within the name if you don't have exact match turned on. So maybe you're guessing at how to spell someone's name, and you could actually type COS if you weren't sure what it started with, and you can pull back that information by scrolling through all those lists there. But we've got her right there. So if we click on Miss Acosta, it's going to pull back her information. Her name is there, her photo, of course, if you've got photos in the system for them. The family members, her primary address is there, and then her associated properties are in the next box. Any of her phone numbers will be listed here, and many of you do use the teledial feature. So again, just to remind you, if your phone is hooked up to the modem in the computer, then the officer can select a phone number from the list and hit call number, and the system will actually dial the number for the officer. They wouldn't even have to type in the 239-555 number there. It would actually dial it for them. If your phone is not connected to the modem, then it's just fine. All you would need to do is then just use this phone number to type it in. And of course, this allows you to call a particular host if a visitor may not be in the visitor list here that has showed up. So say Brandon Thomas shows up and he's not on the visitor list, you need to call Miss Acosta and ask if Mr. Thomas is allowed in. Then she would just say yes, of course, and you'd be able to add that visitor. Any of her away messages would have shown up here, but of course that one that is in there is set to expire already, so it's not going to show up there. Say we wanted to process Miss Henderson through. She's here on the pending visitor list. I'm going to hit admit visitor. After I click on her name, you'll see that her information showed up there where she's going. If you hit admit visitor, some of you may or may not have driver's license scanning, but just to show you what that does, if you do hit this scan license button right here, it's going to pull all the information off the front of the license and go ahead and populate those cells for you, including the photo cell here, so that your officers don't actually have to type in any of that information or even snap that photo. You have the ability in the visitor processing client to show all of the the last 4 digits of the license, none of the digits, or to not scan the license number off of there. And then it pulls the rest of the information you have here. If you needed to type any information in here, you could type that information, select the visitor type, the schedule date, and the expiration date. And again, just to remind you, you can click on each of these tabs, or you can hit the next button to proceed on to the next tab. If you needed to type any notes in there, you could. Jumping back, I forgot to mention this. If you all do have auto license plate information turned on, then you'll see this section on the right hand side, and what you can do is just type the license plate information in there. And I didn't mean to do that in the wrong place. And you can type any notes that you needed in there, and if you needed to print a pass or a badge, and you could do that. I'm just going to hit don't print right now because you all do know what that looks like, of course. So hit don't print, and it's going to go ahead and process that person through. It says pass save successfully. Hit OK. This is one of the server options that you all have access to. It says process additional visitors. It says, are there any additional passengers to process in the vehicle? If you all are interested in processing all visitors in a vehicle, maybe in particular that might be useful for landscapers or contractors of that sort, where the driver's in the truck and maybe they've got one or two other gentlemen or ladies working with them, and you would like to scan the licenses for those folks or get their name and contact information as well, then you could hit yes there. If not, you could hit no. If you don't ever want to process additional passengers and you're only concerned about the driver, then you can have this server option turned off and this will never pop up, but I'm just going to hit no right now. If we say Brandon Thomas comes up, just to show you again how that works, he's coming to see Miss Acosta and he's not in that pending visitor list, then we have the ability to hit add new visitor. We can type in his information by hand, or if we're scanning licenses, then all we need to do is hit scan license. Here's not working for me. Select the visitor type. Maybe he's going to be there for a week, and we're going to set his expiration date on the 10th. Maybe he's going to the clubhouse right now, and you needed to do that. Then you can select that alternate destination there, put any comments in you need, and hit the driver identity. You can process any of this information here you need, or hit complete and print. I'm going to hit skip license. You can hit skip auto section as well. Type in any notes that you need, and you can print a pass or a badge depending on what you're doing, or don't print, and it'll just process them through. Pop up pass save successfully, and we're going to say no additional visitors. So both of those folks are in there, and then I'll quickly jump back to the web portal here and show you in the transaction log that Valerie Henderson was processed through. So we can look at her information. It actually captured all that information off the license. And if we wanted to see Brandon Thomas, we didn't scan his license, but his information is still in here along with the print date. That is all that we have on the tips side of things. We've got a few tricks for you that are going to take us to the half hour, and then we should be free for today. One thing that I do want to point out while we're on the topic of the visitor processing client here is the ability to check in or check out visitors. If, for example, Mr. Thomas is leaving and you wanted to check him out, if we were to pull him back up, search for him, and you'll see here is his name. If we click on his name the first time, then we have this check-in, check-out button here. If you were to click on this, then you have the ability to either check in or check out this person. Since, say, maybe he's leaving for a lunch break and he's going to be coming back this afternoon, you can hit check out. That says visitor successfully checked out, and you'll hit OK. He's coming back after lunch. I'm going to search for him again. You can pull back his information, hit check in, and then you'll see that check out's grayed out, of course, because he's not on site anymore. If you hit check in, then it'll be successfully updated. So this is a trick to help bypass having to admit that visitor again. So you don't have to go through all those steps. You can use the check-in, check-out, and then in the visitor transaction log and any of your reports, it shows up the same way. It's just a quicker tool for you all and your officers to use if you're checking in folks or checking them out quickly. If they say, for example, they came in today and Mr. Thomas comes back next week, but you never checked him out, what you can do is you can still check him in without having checked him out, and what it does is, based on your visitor transaction log, it'll actually show that it checked him out just 1 second before you checked him in. So if he's coming back next week and you haven't checked him out, then you just hit check in again and he's back in. So that is a quick way for you to do that. That's one little trick for you. Another trick I did mention was in the web portal. I talked about briefly, and I just want to go back to here for you, is the purge expired for those visitor types. We do get a lot of folks who are concerned about the time that it takes to pull up some visitor logs, and this purge expired button again will purge that particular visitor type. For example, these contractors are on purge expired right now, and these one-time visitors are purge expired. Of course, this is customizable to your needs and your desires in the system, but if you do hit purge expired for a particular visitor type, then once their expiration date is up, then they're purged from all visitor lists. So for example, if Mr. Thomas was on purge expired and his expiration date was up, you wouldn't be able to search to check in or check out his name again. So that helps to quicken your processes of these searches, as well as just sorting through the information, because it keeps the list cleaner and condensed. The next one is one that we actually had a question about earlier today, which I want to talk on. There was a question about how to set up visitors such as family members in the event that you know that they're going to be coming to see you, but you don't know the first date that they might be coming to see you. So you of course want to put them in there. What you can do actually is you can set this particular visitor up. So say I live in the community, and my mother is coming to visit me, and I don't know when, but I know that she's going to stop in to check on me and do anything mothers like to do. What I can do is I can actually go in and set her as a permanent visitor with unlimited duration. So what that would be is, if we'll say that I'm Darius Acosta. You might recognize this gentleman's face. If I needed to add my mother in here, but I'm not sure when she's coming, I could add her in there and make her a permanent visitor. This information here isn't important right now because we of course don't know when she's coming, but we want her to be able to come in whenever she pleases. Then we can put her on the permanent unlimited duration visitor type and hit save. So if she decides to pop her head in 2 weeks and I don't know she's coming to surprise me with some cupcakes, then she'll be able to come in without me knowing. So that's how you can add family members or any other visitors without knowing exactly when they're coming in. So that was a great question. And one more quick one, which might allow us to start a little early, to finish a little early, is the ability to add a shortcut to your screen. What you can do is, I'm going to log out to show you how this would work. If you have and I'm going to shrink this window down a little bit so you can see my desktop. If you're logged on to your sites, so for example this one is just 510betacom.capture.com, so whatever your community name is .capture.com, you're on this login page here. What you can do is, right now I'm in Google Chrome. If you're in Internet Explorer or Safari or Firefox, they all work the same way. Whatever item is right here next to the address, if you were to click and hold with your left click button on your mouse and drag that to the desktop, you'll see now I've got this Capture Web Portal link here. So then what I can do to quickly log in, this is up to you how you would like to do this. If you want to just be able to quickly get to this screen, then you can have this link on your desktop there. So if I hit X, if I were to log back in, it's going to bring me right to this home page, so I don't have to click on Google Chrome or Internet Explorer and go through Google or whatever my home page is, MSN or anything like that, and then type in this or use a bookmark even. There's actually a shortcut right on the desktop there that pulls me up. And then if you want to, you can go as far as saving your password information. So if I were to save this, you type in your password, hit remember information, and then hit log in. And it's going to log you in here to your home page. But the next time that I want to come into this system, since I've got this shortcut on my desktop already, if I double click on that, then it's going to log me right in because my information was saved and I don't even have to log in anymore. So then I can just go quickly schedule my visitor. So if I was a resident, of course, this would be a little different screen that you would see here, and you'd be able to schedule a visitor for yourself. So you can have this for you as an administrator on your office computer, or if it's a resident on their home computer, could do it that way. So that's just one more trick for you about how to use the system a little bit quicker if you're concerned about that. So that is actually all that we've got today. I'm going to check with Brandon really quickly, see if there are any questions that might be beneficial for all. He seems to think that the questions he answered were some personal questions that he was able to get handled. If you do have any other questions, then you are more than welcome, of course, to give us a call, shoot us an email with any of those questions. We'll answer those for you. And this was being recorded, so we will send out the link with this recording later on. If you wanted to sit back in or pass that link along to any other folks there, you could do that as well. And of course, we've got all of the help videos and the user manuals that can also help. If you've got any other questions in the coming days, then shoot us something, and we might include those in the next tips and tricks, which might be next month. So if you got anything, then we can always use some information. Or if you got some suggestions for the software, then you could of course send those our way as well, and it might be something we could release into a future build of the software. So with that, I appreciate your time, and so does Brandon. If you've got any other questions for us, again, just shoot them over to us and we'll take care of those. Thank you all very, very much for sitting in, and I hope you all have a great rest of the afternoon and a great weekend.